Hello, I'm Dave Beering, Technical Director here at TriStar, and welcome to another Tech Talk. Today we're going to talk about Rulon 488. The Rulon 488 was developed many years ago kind of as a result of the development of our Rulon 641. One of the things that we learned about the 641 is that as the temperature goes up, the material stabilizes and actually becomes a better bearing. So we took that knowledge and did a couple of minor changes with the material, added a wear inhibiting pigment, and made it into an industrial grade material. The first application that we looked at was ovens, and what type of ovens were out there on the market that required long life, good serviceability, ease of installment, ease of removal. And one of the first big industries we looked at was the veneer industry. The veneer industry has changed dramatically over the years. There's not nearly as many mills here in the U.S. as there used to be, but there's still plenty of them out there. And Rulon 48 has been well known, well received for many, many years. The traditional bearings for veneer dryer ovens have been graphite, copper graphite materials, sometimes pure carbon. Those were used because they could take very high temperatures. But one of the problems that we ran into with some of the mills in the early days was that they found that those types of materials could sometimes, in a flash fire, actually weld themselves to the cast iron hardware. And so it was discovered very early on that the Rulon 48 did not do that, obviously, because nothing sticks to it. And that in fact, because Rulon does not melt, about the only thing that happened in a flash fire was that it would soften a bit. And in those cases, if the dryers continue to move, which was very rare, you might get a little bit of ovaling in those bearings in a section that might have gotten overly hot. For those of you who have not seen a veneer dryer, it's quite an impressive piece of equipment. It's made up of several sections and several layers of conveyor belts that are basically moving wet veneers off of the logs through a dryer, an air dryer, and that hot air is what dries the veneer out and becomes the little short pieces that eventually become part of plywood. And so it's very critical that the veneers go through a very specific heat up and cool down so that they don't fracture, and when they come out the other end you've got nice solid pieces of dry wood. So in a typical veneer dryer you could have several thousand bearings, and the bearings vary in size depending on the manufacturer of the equipment. Worldwide the number one manufacturer is Co, and Co also owns several other smaller trade names, people that have been become part of the Co US&R family over the years. There is also materials that we have supplied for Raute, and that's a slightly different configuration. But most of the big veneer manufacturers and the veneer OEMs for the ovens are aware of and have used the Rulon 48. And I would suggest that if you have an industrial oven and the temperatures are in the 600 degree range and below, it's certainly a viable product for you to take a look at. We've also sold 488 in glass ovens, like tempering ovens, not necessarily in the first zone, but as the zones cool and get into the 400 to 600 degree range, the 488 is very, very good material. Again, in terms of its reliability, its long life, these bearings can last years in service, and many of the veneer mills found that out. In fact, I remember one guy told me that when they started to get a little bit of ovaling in the bearings, they would just pull them out and rotate them 90 degrees, and they'd get another 3 or 4 years. So very good material. The 48, again, as it gets hot, it gets better. So for oven applications, certainly something to take into consideration. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on another Tech Talk.